Yep, that's me, and that hovering hunk of garbage is my current home base. Now, I'm sure you're wondering how I ended up in this situation, wearing nothing but a furry Halloween costume. And I'd show you, but all of my footage of the early miserable parts of this run got corrupted. So I will instead show you these informative slides while I prepare for an upcoming boss fight that I will surely defeat on my first try.
The Terraria run started out like any other. I had to gather resources, look for loot, armed with nothing but the mediocre starting tools. But the main difference was that I would not be allowed to use the crafting interface in the lower left corner for anything. If it's crafted, I'm not allowed to use it. Of course, that cuts out a third of the options for progression, from crafting, killing enemies, or finding stuff in the world, to just two of those. So mining is less of a profitable activity than it is normally, as not only am I stuck with mediocre tools with no immediate upgrades, but the vast majority of ores are useless without the ability to craft them into better ones, and even the chests that hold loot are still more situational than they are normally. Now, I can't craft a hammer tool to actually break the ore, but getting lucky finding bombs and pots is enough to detonate the orb and release its guaranteed drop, which will always be a gun. The first one you smash. And then things progress from there. Though my character progressed at glacial speed, I was still gathering incremental stat boosts like crystals, then 3 stacks HP, and that meant the army could actually attack. Now, the ability to place blocks to create walls that would stimulate most enemies, besides the flying teleporting ones, let me pick them off with the newly acquired gun with ease, meaning despite the power level this enemy is. I also made some rudimentary houses with some walls, which also might be standard with bombs because I didn't have a hammer. And for crystal, most relevant to the upcoming boss fight is the Blood Moon, which is a horde of enemies, like the other army. Flying enemies are more common, making this much more difficult. But the real boss of this run, the villainous patchwork, happens to drop a quite useful weapon, or at least I thought it was useful at the time. You see, it releases some piercing, grasping skeletal hand projectiles that I assume would shred through a segmented worm boss, allowing me to skip 2 bosses in progression, even though magic weapons are not going to be very useful to me without the ability to craft the normally 3 upgrades for max mana.
But I mean, it can't be that bad. As you just saw, I couldn't even kill enough slimes, the easiest enemies in the game, fast enough to get King Slime to spawn. And that really sums up this entire early game of the run. My durability is poor because I can't craft armor. My damage is poor because I can't craft good weapons. And my movement is poor, because even once I unlock the Goblin Tinker, I can't combine accessories. So I have to devote most of my accessory slots all to movement, which further impacts my survivability and damage. Like, I even found the Digester, which would be a pretty solid weapon because of the high base damage, and the health would just be a bonus. But I can't even use that because of the lack of mana crystals, which also happens to block me out of a full half of the weapons. No magic, no summoner, limited healer, and the inability to craft inspiration upgrades for Bard further limits my options. Basically, in order to get something good, I have to pull off a progression skip. But pulling progression skips off are hard if you don't have good gear. With Skeletron rendered an unviable option, I have no choice but to turn to the other bosses available at this time. Without being able to craft a summon for Queen Bee, you can only summon her a limited amount of times per world, and I consider her harder than Skeletron anyways. With that said, the Thorium mod adds a boss that is perfect for the restrictions set by this challenge. The Viscount is only spawned by spending unholy shards at a naturally spawning altar, and unholy shards drop from Blood Moon enemies in droves. I've had a couple of them, so I will essentially never run out. All that's left is the trouble of actually defeating this Queen Bee level boss with pre-boss gear. Entering hard mode in a Terraria playthrough opens up a plethora of new immediate progression to be found. There's lots of mining to be done, new crafted items to unlock, and I'm sure you see the issue now. Without crafting, we're going to be scrabbling around in the dumpster for 3 more agonizing bosses. It'll get better once we beat the mech bosses, but until then, we have to beat the mech bosses. And to make matters worse, there's a time limit on those bosses, as they will run away like a little sissy coward as soon as the sun comes up, so it's impossible to just chip them away with whatever garbage weapons we can find. We're gonna have to somehow scrounge up actually good gear. I get chills just thinking about it. And speaking of chills, our next destination will be the ice biome in the hopes of catching a certain snowy spider.
Bruh.
With the Borean Strider defeated, you might think that we've finally gotten our foot in the door, so to speak. But you'd be dead wrong. You see, the entire point of going after the Borean Strider isn't for a damage upgrade, it's for a mobility upgrade. It will unlock an enemy in the spider caves, which, when killed, will then allow the tracker to sell some wings. Now, these wings are actually worse than our gladiator wings. But when in front of a wall, they will octuple in stats, which is quite nice. Of course, we can't craft. We can't get enough walls to make an arena that would make use of such a thing. And even if we did, placing all those walls would take an inordinate amount of time. Thankfully, I had the idea of using the naturally spawning walls that you can find on the surface, excavating all the blocks in the way and allowing me to build a very scuffed, but hopefully viable arena. But even then, that's not the end of our preparation for mech bosses, it's only the beginning. Because if you hadn't noticed, the best gun I have is one that I looted off a snowman. And don't tell me to use the Borean Strider's weapons, because the entire gimmick of those is that they freeze enemies in their tracks, stopping them. But all bosses are immune to those debuffs for balance reasons. So that's a dead end, and we can't even craft the summoning item for an intermediate boss like the Fallen Beholder. It seems like a lost cause, and that might be because I've cut out all the useless grinding and setting up of farming spots that never paid off. But there is a way forward, and if you can believe it, being backed up against the wall with no good items, no options, and only one way forward is the best part of doing a Terraria challenge. Twisting and prodding and experimenting with whatever you can get your grubby little fingers on. It's like a puzzle. It's a new way to experience one of my favorite games, and I fully intend to take this challenge to the very end. If you like this kind of thing, drop a like and subscribe, and if you don't like it, leave a comment, because then you'll get to yell at me, and I'll get algorithm engagement, so we both win. Other than that, that's it. Hope you have a good day. I'll see you next time.